Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Wealth and Love podcast with Lynn and Dro, where we discuss all things love, wealth, and spirituality. Today, we have two special people to us. All right, go ahead, introduce them, babe.
We have some wonderful people, a great couple. This is Pastor Bernard and Minister Gigi. Guys, tell us about yourself.
I'm Gigi, Minister Gigi, whichever one is you're comfortable with. I'm a wife, mother, minister. I love people. I love God, and I love all things spiritual.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pastor Bernard. I serve in a ministry, demonstration ministries, where I'm one of the pastors there. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I just love empowering people and I just love encouraging people. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, to be on this podcast. I love the setup.
Thank you.
And those wings, they looking good right now. They looking good.
That's right.
All right, so speaking of wings, as you all know, we always have Lynn's pick of the day. So today we have some honey glaze with a little bit of barbecue, but not too much. So some honey glazed wings with a side of ranch.
Hold it up for him
And
so I can get a close up of it.
we are going to...
And also, as always, we have RJ in the background.
Oh, yeah.
They just always hear me start speaking. They don't just never.
That's true. That's true.
All right, so we're going to just take a bite and dig into it. Honest opinion, y'all, with how it tastes. Here, babe.
Right.
Oh, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
very
okay.
delicious. Very rich in taste.
Thank you.
I'm not sure which it tastes.
Oh man.
If I knew, I would have made more. So before we get into today's topic, we're going to go ahead and start with a quick icebreaker just to, it's going to be a relaxed. It's not an interview. It's just a conversation that we're having on camera, of course.
Yeah, we're just trying to have some fun before we get into the topic.
Yeah. So,
I gotta be on the edge because
No,
I've
you-
seen some of your icebreakers.
question number one, or icebreaker number one, I should say. Would you rather know the date of your death or the cause of your death?
Oh, you know what's crazy? I was gonna put that on my Instagram.
For real?
For real?
Yeah.
Today?
I was gonna like 2 days ago. I forgot.
Oh wow, the irony.
I was gonna put that on there. And I always said the date.
Oh, and we also have RJ's wife in the back, so if you hear us laughing, it's her facial expressions for us.
I always said the date.
The date?
Mm-hmm.
What about you guys? What would you rather, the date or the cause of your death?
For me, I would say the date as well, because the cause, I'm not gonna feel it.
You're not gonna feel it?
The cause of death.
You might.
Oh, I might feel it. Yeah, that's true. I
What it is.
might feel it. I might feel it. You're right. No, I think I would want to know the date.
The date. What about you, Miss Gigi?
Well, I would say the date as well, just simply because I feel like when God's gonna take me out, it ain't gonna hurt. That's just me.
Okay.
So I would want to know the date just so that I can do everything that I needed to do before that time comes.
Okay.
So you feel like you're gonna wrap it up?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I feel the
That's
same way too.
confidence.
We're gonna wrap it up together.
Amen.
That's good.
Yeah,
What about
yeah.
you,
I would
babe?
say the same thing. I
The
would,
date?
yeah, the date because so I can know what to do in order, like whoever I'm leaving behind, so they can be okay. So yeah, I'd rather know the date.
Yeah.
I already saw it. Only reason I said the date is because if I know the date I'm gonna die,
You gonna do all
I'm
that?
gonna be able to live it up until.
I knew he was gonna say that. I knew he was gonna say that.
Oh, I got 7 more days. All right,
I'm gonna go jumping off of bridges. I'm gonna bungee jumping because it ain't another day.
it's not the day.
That's true.
I
That's
got
true.
some more time.
All right. Okay. Second icebreaker question: would you rather fly or be invisible?
Invisible forever or just when I want to?
when you want to.
Like as a superpower, I
Yeah.
should say.
You can fly when you want. You can be invisible when you want.
How high up can I fly?
Oh my gosh, RJ.
That's important.
Now these are important
Like
questions.
Superman fly.
Well, because Spider-Man just be jumping from buildings. So you
Yeah,
can't
that's
really-
true. That's true. So like Superman fly.
That same speed too?
Yeah.
Oh my God, RJ, you're making this hard.
Hey, nah, he's asking me a question.
Uh,
If I could fly and I have the speed, I believe I'll probably make it everywhere on time. I feel like being late would not be a factor.
So you think the reason why you're late is because you can't fly?
If I know how to fly through traffic and do all that, my boss may be watching right now. Some badass power. You do it
That's
on
good.
time.
I think.
I
Oh,
would
go
want to
ahead.
be invisible. And one of the reasons why I would want to be invisible is because you'll be able to do the stuff that you need to do without any hindrance. You understand? And sometimes when things are happening, you know, and you're not aware of it, when people know, like people will say certain things because they know you're not there. So you always get honesty when you'll be able to be invisible and hear and see what people do. And then it changes your outlook about certain
That's true.
people. So
That's true.
I would want to be invisible.
Yeah, I would want to be invisible too.
And then you just bring up the conversation that you had. You're like, yeah, so what did you really think about my cooking? You're like, oh, where's this coming from? Well, tell me your honest opinion.
last question though. Would I have to get fully naked to be invisible?
Oh my god.
That's a good
Or
one.
just any clothes I have on. they could
Like
take
Superman.
Superman.
Any
Superman.
clothes. He could keep on his clothes.
Yeah, but he doesn't go invisible.
He doesn't go invisible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you're invisible, the clothes will be invisible too. Yeah.
Unless you
Yeah, I would rather be invisible.
Yeah, probably.
Sometimes I don't want to be seen. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, sometimes you just don't want to be bothered with. So being
Yeah.
invisible, you know.
I would rather fly. I don't think I have the character yet to be invisible.
I probably do regular stuff like rob from banks.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just saying.
and the money will get invisible with you.
That's
So that'll be good.
You can rob a bank. You're invisible, so you can rob a bank and no one will know the difference.
No.
So let's go ahead and think, yeah, Susan, the money's just moving around.
If the clothes get invisible, put it under the
Now,
clothes.
I see the bag, and then the money's going in the bag. Like, how is this taking place? Susan, oh my goodness, call the police. You out of there.
That's good.
That's why I wanted to fly, and I'll just be like, bro, just let me get the bag, man.
Oh my god.
Yeah. This is just jokes.
Yeah. We ain't robbing no
They
bank.
gonna be like, wait, I thought you was a pastor.
It's making plans to rob a bank with all the banks.
That's true for real.
I knew what you were saying.
He's right. He shouldn't be a pastor. He's right.
He probably
That's
takes
crazy,
time,
man.
Oh my god. All right, last question. Okay. If your house was burning, right? If your house was burning, if your house was burning, and in the house was the key to your purpose, everything concerning your future, is in the house. So you either had the choice to grab that key that had all the doors, right? That could unlock all the doors to your purpose. Or grab your spouse. Which would you do?
That's a good point. I would go
Yeah.
What is what's purpose without your spouse?
I agree.
Because you can't fulfill purpose alone. So you may have the key to purpose, but if you're missing the most important thing, the key means nothing. Because it's like having a key to a house that does not exist. There's no point in having that house.
That's good. That's good. I should have let you enter first.
That's when she not sleeping on the couch.
I definitely wouldn't hear her.
What about you? Well, I already know you gonna say
Well,
the
you
same
know,
thing.
I agree with my sweetheart, you know. Yeah, I agree with you, babe.
What about you, RJ?
What do you mean key to my purpose though? Like
Like-
what God sent me here to do?
Yes, everything. Like you know, a lot of people are chasing their purpose, but they don't know what it is. They don't know what they're supposed to do, and so you have that key in the home.
Something that would unlock.
And that key would unlock all the doors too.
See, the fact that I'm taking too long to respond already got me in trouble. But of course I'm saving my
Roll
spouse.
that eye already.
Of course I'm saving my spouse. But it's like, now I'm putting my spouse above my purpose for God. That's a catch-22.
But do you chase the things or do you chase the person? Which one is more important? It's all about what's important to you.
Because the person can help you get the things.
Yeah.
Right, the person
Because
can.
purpose doesn't
But does
end.
the person have the key?
But let me actually let me.
If God has the key, don't you think He can always give you another key?
That's good.
You can make copies of keys all the
That's why I
time.
ask questions. Is God going to give me another key?
We don't know.
That's the only one.
Yeah,
That's the
but
only
to
one.
me, I feel like the only reason someone wouldn't choose their spouse is if they know who, like if they don't know if God didn't choose the spouse for
For
them.
them.
Because if God chose this spouse, the spouse for you, that's when this person is connected with your purpose.
Purpose, yeah.
So I would choose my wife.
Like, yo, it's because I'm just married, bro.
It's okay.
It's because I'm fresh in this day, bro.
What about you, Juicy? Which one?
The spouse.
Aww.
The spouse wouldn't choose me. He chooses.
I ain't gonna say that. I'm just asking questions.
Because my opinion is like, yeah, like the key is linked to your purpose, your destiny, and whatnot. But it's like, what if God allows your spouse to hear from Him?
That's true. They're connected.
That's
Your
true.
spouse is connected to
God
your
provides
purpose.
your spouse with the answers to your purpose, your destiny, and all that.
That's
That was a
good.
part of the thing.
It's not about that, but it's like, I mean,
She's looking at the whole picture.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
She's
saying.
detailed.
That was part of the thing. They gave me a clear cut. Keep your spouse.
All right, so we ain't trying to get nobody in trouble tonight. All right, so that was just a little fun icebreaker. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So, question for you guys too. Go ahead and answer the icebreaker in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get to our topic today. So, as you guys can see from the title, it is a traditional God and the true God. And so, the reason why we wanted to talk about this, or that we wanted to touch on this, is that as people that grew up in the church, there are a lot of things that we are learning the closer that we get to God or having a relationship with Him. And not to play the blame game, but we realize the way that we grew up did not really paint a pretty picture of who God really is. And so I know a lot of people seek God from that one dimension that, whether it was your parents or church or your pastor taught you. So we just wanted to touch on that, and who better to have than these are actually our pastors, actually. So who better to have, or one of our pastors, I should say. Go ahead, Ben. You wanna?
Yeah, like she said, this is something we grew up in church, and as we're growing up and knowing God's better, we understand that God is more than tradition. God is bigger. God is greater than the picture that they give us. So we're gonna go to the first question. Is if you had which one?
This one.
If you had one word to describe the God that you knew 10 years ago, what would that adjective be?
If you
Like
had
in one word to describe.
one word to describe the God that you knew 10 years ago, what word would you use to describe Him?
We might have to go further back for Pastor Bernard.
That's true, because he's been a pastor like forever. Oh, like 15 years ago.
Yeah, man. Like I just one word wouldn't even be able to really describe it. But if I had to put it in one word, I would say, I would say the way that God was presented to me, it implemented fear, but it wasn't a reverent fear. It was more so of a fear of punishment, a fear that implemented condemnation. So a lot of stuff that I was doing, it wasn't out of love for God, but it was out of, I want to say, obligation, that if I don't do this, don't do that, then this is what's going to happen.
Right.
So it wasn't until as I started to get a greater understanding of who God was, when I started to walk my individual path, meaning that I wasn't looking at God through the lens of people or particular leaders, but God allowed me to, go through different experiences where I had my own individual experience and built my own individual relationship with him that allowed me to be able to see a different side of him.
Right.
That allowed me to be able to see the grace. That allowed me to see that he's filled with compassion. He's filled with mercy. He's filled with love. I always use this example. If let's just say I saw this example online. I thought that it was a great example to actually put everything in perspective. Let's just say, a young man turns 17, 18, and it's his birthday. His dad says, you know what? I want you to go ahead and drive, the best car that I have. Mm-hmm. And the young man takes the car out and he drives it and he ends up crashing the car. And he says, you know what? I don't want to call my dad because of what may happen, what he may say. Or better yet, I want to call my dad because I need his direction. I need his guidance. Right. So that's the difference between relationship and religion. And that came through. Go ahead.
So what would be your one word to describe?
Fear.
Fear?
Fear. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Minister Gigi? What would be one word?
I would go by the same word. Fear, judgment, even torment. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when we operate in with a fearful mindset, we're tormenting ourselves, and you're led to believe that if you don't live your life this way, you're going to hell. Yeah. And it's just clear cut. And I feel like sometimes, I'm not saying there are exceptions to that, but what I'm saying is it's a bigger picture. It's not just black and white. It's not just you do 1 + 1, you get 2. It's not that, but there's a lot of facets to God, and I feel like the God that I was presented at a very young age was a God of fear, a God of judgment, a God of torment. So everything that God is not, I believe I would say. Yeah.
What about you, babe?
It's the same thing. Fear. It's fear because we grew up knowing God as someone that punishes us. Like whatever you do wrong, he punishes you. And people often spoke about the love of God, but they didn't really teach us how to really experience his love. So it was fear to me because they said if you lie, you go to hell. If you this, you go to hell. So yeah, it was fear as well.
So for me, my one word 10 years ago, I don't mind sharing my age. So 10 years ago, I was 20. So my one word to describe the God that I knew then would have to be strict. I felt like I couldn't really be myself knowing God. I had to conform to a certain box, mainly the box and the label that my parents presented. And I grew up in a Baptist church, so the way that the church presented it, and I felt like I couldn't really be me. So the word that I would use to describe the God that I knew then was very strict. Very strict. What about you, Archie? 10 years ago, if you...
20?
Yeah.
I honestly want to say faithful.
Oh, wow. I love
I
that.
want to say faithful.
Why at
I
20?
want to say that.
Mm-hmm. Is that what your 20-year-old self would...
That's what my 20-year-old self was probably was going through and what I needed. You know what I'm saying? I probably at that time needed father. Let me just say father. Everything that encompasses father. Let me say that. Because like I was saying before we even started, the way that I was raised as a young Christian child, or the way that my parents, they didn't raise me the way that other, I guess, pastors or ministers raise their kids. Because they told me, or they would illustrate about a vengeful God or a God that you should fear.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they spoke about a God of love. You know what I'm saying? They spoke about a God of love. Because in their testimonies that they would share all the time, they would talk about how God always looked out for them, looked out for their families, always provided for them so that they're able to provide for their families. And even in times where we were like, bruh, y'all tripping, y'all doing too much, and it'll just be like, we can't say that we're doing too much because when we didn't have nothing, God gave it to us. So if God gives us now, we have to give to other people, or else the well gonna dry out. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to say, Father.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good. All right, so that leads me to our next question. How was Christianity introduced to you? Or was it even, you know, I know for me, like I said, I grew up in a Baptist church. Although my parents, they weren't pastors or anything, but my dad served. And he took his serving real serious, y'all. And all he did was like tell you where to park your car.
Parking lot attendant.
Yeah.
Tell you where to park your car. And hi, Poppy, if you're watching. Tell you where to park your car. And my dad took this thing real serious. Church started at 9:00. We had to be out of the house by 8:00. If we weren't out, my dad was having a fit with my mom because he needed to be. Yes, he took his serving so seriously. So Christianity was introduced to me like ever since I was little. My dad grew us up in church, but I think my idea of Christianity, I guess, was cultivated from me going to church every Sunday and seeing how, you know, the other kids operate and how the adults operate with each other. So that's how it was introduced to me. But how was it introduced to you guys?
Well, the way it was, because I was born in Haiti, so I grew up in Haiti. So the environment that I grew up in was very poor. You know, it was literally like getting it out the mud. Like if you get a piece of bread, it's like your day is like, it's gonna be a good day for you. That's the type of mentality that we had. So the way Christianity was introduced to me, it was as if, you know, you're lucky that you have this God that, you know, not necessarily, you know, whether he provides or not, he's still sovereign. That's the God that, you know, was introduced to me as far as when, you know, with my Christianity, it was, you know, you have to read 4 or 5 Psalms before you go to bed. Wow. You know, it is your duty at least once or twice a month to fast, and not just fast in the comfort of your home, but you have to go, you know, my mom would take trips top of the mountains. We will go like yes, it was brutal. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, man, all of this. So the Christianity that I was introduced to, it was a lot of work, and it wasn't more a soul work. It was more physical work. You know, it was, you have to be at this location. You have to be, you have to have this posture. You know, you have to be dressed a certain way. My mom would literally like dress us from like, I think the only thing that was out was my head, but everything else was covered. Our dresses was long. I was wearing like big clothes till I was probably like almost 16. I would be so embarrassed. You know, the other kids will have like, you know, regular clothes on, and I have this bonnet on my head because my head always had to be like my head always had to have something on it, and then I couldn't show, you know, my arms.
What religion were you guys?
Baptist.
Oh, wow.
It was one of those strict Baptists, like, you know, covered up. And then, you know, so Christianity was just introducing me as a lot of work. It took a lot. And if you even miss a moment of prayer, that's it. Now you have, like, you took 10 steps backward.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
What about you, Pastor Bernard? How was Christianity introduced to you?
Christianity was actually introduced to me through, I could really say, my grandma. My mom and dad, they were, well, more so my mom, she was in the church, but, you know, with them having to work, they weren't able to go to church as often, so we were always left with my grandma. And my grandma, she was a prayer warrior, and she would drag us to church, like, I want to say almost every day. It doesn't matter what day of the week it was, because she would actually do shut-ins in the church, and she'll, you know, grab my sister and I, and we will go into church and we'll shut in with her. We'll either be sleeping or just playing around or whatever the case may be while she's praying. And she would grab us and bring us to revivals. Every time the prayer line is up, you know, she's picking us up and we're getting anointed. At the time, we don't know what's going on. We don't know why we're being anointed. We don't know why we have to have our head with all this oil on there. And but the way she presented Christianity to us was more so like, if you're in trouble, if you're in need, this is who's gonna be able to help you. You know, but it wasn't until later on, as we got into church, then we found out that it was a whole bunch of rules. You know, our grandma was teaching us relationship because she was very firm on prayer. We wake up, she's praying, come home from school, she's praying, going to bed, she's praying. But as we got deeper into church, it was like all these restrictions that was put on what we can do. You mentioned something that was very key when you said like you got to a point where you felt like you couldn't really be yourself, and that's how it was for us at one point. So yeah.
Ever since I can remember, I've been in church and like I've done everything, like from kids choir and youth meeting, everything, and yeah, it was introduced through my parents. As a lot of you might already know, my parents were pastors, and yeah, that's how it was introduced. And another thing too is like we pray every morning, every night, quote scriptures and everything. Yeah. So yeah, this is how it was introduced to me.
Yeah, and I guess same thing for you, RJ, because your dad is a pastor.
From before birth.
Yeah, from before birth. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, same way was introduced to my dad for the most part from birth.
You know what? I don't. You know, as parents now, I'm a little bit on the fence with it because we're reaping the benefits of what they did, even though it was forceful. But now I'm a little on the fence because, you know, there's times sometimes where Abby doesn't feel like going to church. But then it brings me back to my old self where I didn't feel like going to church. My mom would be like, you're going to church with Biswan and Liglies. And, you know, it was good for me at the time. I didn't know. But it also made me not want to get to know this God because why are you forcing me to get to know him? And so do you think that religion or a relationship with Christ is something that should be forced? Or
is such a...
I know a strong word, right?
That already is just saying no.
That's how these kids feel.
Right.
That's how they feel.
It is definitely how
Because you know, we go to church Wednesday.
Friday,
Shout out to Demonstration Ministry.
Sunday.
We go to church, no shade, Demonstration Ministry. Okay. We go to church Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and that's not counting the Thursday prayer lines. We have Thursday prayer lines, y'all, at 10 p.m. 561. Yeah, so sometimes, you know, Abby will be like, oh my gosh, church again. Even Olivia, who's 4, she'll be like, church again. Like, girl, this is where you need to be.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. You know, a lot of time parents kind of force children to be in church, to do this, to serve and stuff like that. It's out of fear.
Yeah.
Because they know how the enemy attack children, attack people in general. Yeah,
and then, you know, just gleaning off what you guys were saying, looking back at it, even with parenting, when you look at the way that, you know, our parents raised us, you know, we say stuff like, hey, you know what, I'm not going to do that to my kids. And, you know, looking at the way our parents raised up in the gospel, raised us up in general, there's a lot of things that they did not know, or they didn't have the knowledge, or they weren't privy to.
Yeah.
So for them, they did the best that they can. And the best that they can would be also, what Liglies are, if you're not going to church, I'm going to get my belt and I'm going to whoop you, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so,
Yeah.
So I feel like with us, you know, this is where we're able to actually change the narrative. And this is where it actually comes into our lifestyle, allowing our children to be able to see the benefits of serving God through them seeing the favor of God upon our lives. And it comes through education. You know, it's one of those, you know, you rule with the iron fist, you know, or you explain to them, or you educate them, hey, this is why we're going to the house of the Lord. We're going to Bible study. We're going to Bible study so we could be able to hear and learn more about God, so we could be able to serve him in a better way. Wouldn't you like to serve him in a better way? Wouldn't you like to do better? You know, I'm going to Bible study because I want to learn different aspects of my Christian walk.
Right.
So I feel like if we would take time out to explain this to our children and, you know, those that are around us, you know, because at the end of the day, everybody's looking for the proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, I always give this example. You know, if somebody's telling me to come do something and this is going to be the benefit of it, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to ask you, did you do it? Did you benefit from it? Because before I do it, I want to make sure it's going to work.
Right.
And, you know, we have so many people out there that's, you know, serving Christ and, you know, they're evangelizing, they're witnessing. But then when you look at their lives, you don't see the fruit in their lives.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it comes with a lot of education. It comes with a lot of sitting down and talking and just being the example. Because at the end of the day, when you force their hand, when they get older, like I remember when I turned 18, my mom was like, man, look, you 18, you could do whatever you want. If you don't want to go to church no more, you could stop this, that, and the other. But I chose to continue. Now I stopped going to her church and I found my own individual church, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, the Bible says you have to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And she was doing her thing over there and I was doing my thing over there, you know? But I still chose to continue to walk because by the time I was 18, it was no longer me being forced. It was no longer my grandma dragging me, but it's me saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to Bible study, even if I had to walk, even if I had to catch the bus. Oh, wow. Because from there, I built my own relationship. Right. And I remember when I was 13, I'm trying to be very political, but no. I remember when I was 13 when I first really gave my life to the Lord, right? It was under false pretense, really, so it wasn't really, right? That was when Y2K was happening. Y'all remember Y2K?
Who's Y2K?
You don't remember Y2K?
We're not that old.
Okay. The new millennium, you know, they were like everything got shut down, the road's getting ready to end. So I'm in church. This is watch night service. I'm in church, and the pastor, he's preaching fire and brimstone and hell, and you know, it's getting ready to be midnight. If you don't accept Christ, there's no telling what's gonna happen. You know, and you know, my Creole and French wasn't even all that, you know, but I was able to pick up a couple of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because I grew up in a Haitian church. So I was like, okay. He said, repent. Me said, you got plenty. Okay. And I was like, man, you know what? I don't know what's getting ready to happen at midnight. Right, yeah, my Creole is not there. So I'm like, man, you know what's getting ready to hit midnight. You know, the world's about to end. I'm not trying to go to hell. So as soon as he said, Omet Vini, come to the altar. Man, I ran up there. And you know, I was young, right? So everybody's like, oh, I'm the youngest one up there, right? So, you know, I'm getting my prayer and everything like that. I go back to my seat. I'm feeling good. I'm like, man, I got my seat secure in heaven. Man, that thing hit 12:01, nothing happened. I was like, hold up. 12:15, nothing happened. Got to the house about 12:30, turned on the computer. You know, it uploaded and stuff like that. I was like, okay, something happening. Man, 1 o'clock, nothing happened. So I was like, man, what did I just do? You know, but from there, I still, you know, serve God the best way that I knew how to. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't really have a firm understanding until I was 17 years old. Mm-hmm. And it was 17 years old, that's when God really placed his hands upon me. And he, you know, really like taught me about him and through other people as well.
Right. That's good.
Well, he said a mouthful. I mean, I do not believe forcing, you know, Christianity or forcing your kids to go to church, because that's what was done to me. And a lot of times I think as parents, we're feeding our kids, you know, something, but we're not giving them the experience. Yeah. You know, we're not explaining to them about the experience. And sometimes we just want them to go there just to be at church, because you're at home watching TV. So I would rather you be in church. But just being in church alone is not enough. Because the devil comes to church too. Right. You understand? So he's right there, but he's not having the same experience that you're having. So church is all about experience. It's not about the particular location, the building, the program. You know, it's not about none of that, but it's actually going and then having an experience with God. And a lot of times we don't give our children the experience. Yeah. And the thing is, why do they have to have the experience at church? You know, a lot of times, majority of the time that, you know, my mom would say, you're going to have an encounter, it will be at church. And I'm like, well, if God is omnipresent, why can't I have an encounter with him in my room? Yeah. You understand? Or she will drag us to the living room and say, oh, get here and, you know, read your Psalms and pray right here. And I'm like, okay. So it's all about a particular location, which brings me back to, you know, the people of Israelite. It was always about, let's go up in the mountains, let's go up to this location, let's go this way. But it's not about the experience. And I think once we start, like my husband said, educating our children about the God that we serve in and allowing them to have their own experience. And it's not just about church. We give them the experience about church, but school. About when they go to school, the way they talk to people, the food that they eat, the clothes that they choose to wear. And I do believe that, you know, you have to allow your children to have their own individuality, right. You know, and sometimes I feel like, you know, we have this roadmap, like, or this guide that we've received from God. One thing we're not realizing is that God has given us, you know, the gift to steward these children, but ultimately we are being steward ourselves. Right. Meaning that we're not always going to get it right. Sometimes your kids are your biggest teacher. Yeah. And I think you don't grow as you're growing in Christianity, as you're growing with your experience in God, your children is also getting the same thing. And until we allow them to voice the good or the bad, them saying, I don't want to go to church, it's not a bad thing. Because all they're gotten is, I have to leave the comfort of my home to go to another place. Yeah. Right. You know, sometimes that's all it is. Sometimes it's just them don't want to leave their house. And all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, they don't love God. They don't care about God. And sometimes we have to ask God, how can we steward our children at their level? In a way where they can understand that, you know, you're not going to church because just to go to this church, but you're going because there's an experience that you know, right, that you want to have.
Yeah. And we're not saying, because I know some people will be like, you don't need to go to church. We're not saying, that's not what she's saying. She's not saying don't go to church. Yes, no. She's saying the church is not the only place where you can meet God. Right. So you're going to say something.
And one of the things that was very imperative in the way I grew up in Christendom is the way that the gospel is communicated to me. One of the things that I had a problem with at the time when I was a part of the Haitian church was it was a very strong language barrier. And thank God at the time I was under a pastor who wasn't so one-minded, where it was like, this is the way the church is going. Anything outside of that, we're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. I went to him and I was like, hey, you know, I don't understand French. So when you're reading from that French Bible and you're speaking French because you have your guest friends who are pastors and all you guys came for theology school, so you want to go ahead and show them that you're educated, you know. Right. I'm sitting back there like, what's going on? And he challenged me. He was like, man, I'm glad you came to me and told me that. That's good. How many other people that are your age and under your age feel the same way? And he was like, you know what? You need to be a Sunday school teacher. So I got hit with that responsibility, and I was thankful for that because it brought.
So you really became a Sunday school teacher?
Yeah, I was a Sunday school teacher. Yeah, I had like.
How old were you?
At the time I was 16 at the time, 16, 17 at the time.
Early,
yeah, I was in ministry. Yeah, I was in ministry. Yeah. Okay. So I was. Yeah. Sorry. So I was. Yeah. And that's a whole nother story too. Like as far as like youth is concerned, like my youth. As far as like going to the clubs and doing that, I wasn't even on that scene. Wow. Because of my
experience clubbing and all that stuff.
I have never been to a club.
Wow.
Yeah.
You ain't missing much.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
You know what I'm saying? So there's two.
I've always felt impure because
there,
God is such a pure. Really?
There's but there's two sides to it.
That's
you know, that's a whole nother conversation too.
Who's a habit?
Well, I'm gonna focus on this one. But it's like, you know, at the time, it's like I was so passionate about communicating the gospel to make sure that people understand it at whatever level that they're at. So I would go and I would study and I would learn. Like I remember when I did what is it called, communion. I was teaching kids at the time and I was teaching about communion. So I brought in like powdered donuts and fruit punch, and that
Fun.
and yeah, and
all it is, make
and
it
that's
fun.
exactly, and that's how we learned about communion. That's how we learned what the bread represents, what the wine represents. But in this case, it was fruit punch. So now, when all the grown folks they're hearing, "Oh, Timon vai pon lasen, you vai pon lasen," you know, in the Haitian church, lasen is like a big thing. Like anybody can't take. Everybody just started coming in. They're like, "Oh, m'tonde what by lasen," and I was like, "Yes, come sit down. Let me teach you."
You want a powdered donut?
You know what I'm saying? So you know.
It's early morning breakfast time.
Yes. So this is what it boils down to as far as forcing our children, our, people. It's about demonstrating the word of God to them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? When you start to see people demonstrate the word of God, our lives alone is a walking Bible. Yeah. I shouldn't have to come in the room and be like, "Hey, I'm a Christian. I'm saved." Yeah. I shouldn't have to do all that. You should be able to see that something's different. Yeah. The supervisor just did the same thing that he did to you. He violated you. He violated me. But I felt like cussing him out. You know what I'm saying? But the fruit of the spirit that I have, that I'm carrying, they prompt me not to. Yeah. Now everybody looking like, bruh, that ain't bother you? Man, I ain't gonna lie, it did. But God's grace really kept me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where it comes down to, as far as forcing and educating our children and having conversations. You don't want to go to church, what's going on? We didn't have that option. Right. We can't let me say, "Oh, Mbaba l'église." What? Before Mbaba, pop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you pretty much said what I was going to say, because a lot of time as parents, for the love that we have for our children, we don't allow God to do His work. Yeah. We stand on the way. Mm-hmm. Because if we really have to be like Christ, being like Christ is all about demonstration. Yeah. All we can do is, if we demonstrate them the love of God, how important God is, how great He is, they would start following our footsteps automatically. We don't even need to say anything.
And another thing that really helped my sister and I as well is the prayers of the righteous. Mm-hmm. Like when my grandma started to get to the point where she was up in age, and to us she always been up in age, but but to the point where she couldn't really talk as much and stuff like that. We would listen to her prayers, and every single day she would pray for us. So a lot of the stuff that we're reaping is because of her prayers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when it got to the point where it wasn't like, "Oh, you're coming to church with me right now," it was, "Lord, please allow them to accept you at an early age. Open up their eyes so they'll be able to see you. Lord, allow them to be able to carry the gospel wherever they go." Right. So hearing those prayers really touched us. And a lot of us, we might want to force the kids, but we have to be able to make way through prayers. Yeah. Even my mom, like a lot of the prayers that she prayed, I'm walking into them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's education, it's intercession. We have to be able to educate them. We have to be able to intercede on their behalf. Mm-hmm. Because mind you, when you talk about kids, you talk about us, we're in places perhaps that our parents didn't even know of. Yeah. Doing things that our parents didn't even know of,
That's Mm-hmm. Things that they wouldn't even think of.
That's true.
Yeah. What about you, RJ? Do you think it should be force or? Nah,
see, force is always a terrible word. Sometimes I really felt like I was forced to go to church, but it's like, man, I'm 10. I can't say no. You feel me? I can't say no. But ever since I was a kid, though, honestly, you can't make me do anything that I think is not fun. Till this day, I'll be at church sometimes. I'm like, bro, I ain't gonna lie, I'm trying to clear it. Because I'm not having fun right now. Because I feel like if I'm able to have fun in other places in society, and you want me to come to church, I better have fun here. Because if I don't have fun here, I'm not going to want to stay. And this is the same way that I feel like it should be presented to kids, presented to everybody. Because I feel like there's adults, even them, I feel like sometimes they just fell into the habit of going to church. Yeah. They probably don't be having fun when they're there sometimes themselves. You get what I'm saying? So I feel like as long as you present it, give them donuts and
Yeah.
juice. Nobody was giving me donuts and juice.
Right.
You feel me? To pretend like it was communion, to teach me about communion.
Yeah.
Although they were giving me the actual communion after the adults had it. But I think if you just present it in a more fun way, in a way that kids will be receptive of it, then it'll be, they won't push it away as much. Because till this day, it's like, damn, I'm here on Sunday, I'm here on Tuesday, I'm supposed to be here on Friday. Although I don't. I'm supposed to be here on Friday. Exactly. And it's like sometimes it's like, nah, man, that's too much not fun in a week.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So as long as it's fun to me,
Yeah.
it'll work. It works.
Yeah. And Sunday you say the whole day.
Oh man,
Whole day.
it's reserved for church.
And he's using the word fun, but I think it's, church should be something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
If there's things in the world that we enjoy, why can't there be things, people, activities in the church that we can enjoy also? Because being a Christian is not boring. Church should not be boring. God is not boring. Right? So that's what.
And one of the problem is, as kids, is the language. What I'm saying is the church language.
Yeah.
We sort of they talking about grown up stuff.
Yeah.
We
that's
need
what
we
Evan
need
says all the
kids
time.
things. I don't understand what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So this is one of the reasons why we did not want to be there as
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And just glean off what RJ was saying and Lynn and Pedro, everybody wants to be able to be in a church, a safe haven, when the gospel is communicated, that they're able to relate to it.
Right.
And I believe that's one of the I want to say issues, but I believe that's one of the concerns that many youth have, is that when they come to church, they're unable to relate to what's being said.
Yeah.
So as opposed to me trying to listen in and try to, dive through the church jargon that's being used and the church cliche, I'd rather tune out.
Yeah.
But if we would just be honest, the message of the gospel has not changed. But it's how we communicate that gospel, and that's how we're going to be able to win, the young folks. We're going to be able to not even win the young folks. We're going to be able to win that father that doesn't come to church because he feel like church has nothing to offer.
Right.
If you look at the Muslims and the Nation of Islam, I'm not sure if you want to edit this part because I don't know how controversial this is going to be.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
you talk about the Nation of Islam, where we're losing so many of our men because they go to a place where they feel belonged.
Yeah.
When they're at church, they don't feel belonged. You know what I'm saying? All they get is, "Oh, I'm so glad you came with your kids to support your wife." They don't get a, "Man, my brother, I'm so glad you're here. Man, let's sit down, let's talk, man. What's going on? How's everything been? How's everything on the job?" You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like that community of church where a lot of us were missing that.
Yeah.
So that's why, a lot of men, they're going to other places, or a lot of young people, they're going to other places where there's community, where it's a family type vibe,
And you know what I feel like the reason that is? I think it's because the Christian church has many different communities. Because there's many different denominations, many different denominations within denominations, many different groups within the church who are trying to have their own separate or different goals. Whereas I'm not in the Nation of Islam, but from what I see, it's really more so
Structure.
Nah, we have the same goal.
It's
We
one.
have the same mission. We have the same, for the most part, everything.
Yeah.
Even though like they're dressed a certain way, like they still a lot of the women are tetmaya, a lot of the dudes in suits or whatever it may be. But for the most part, it's still, there's a structure there that's like, no, this is the goal. This is what we're trying to do. Whereas in the in the Christian church, it's more so, yes, we're following Christ, but the way that we follow Christ, you can't eat red meat. You can't eat pork.
And then this goes back to the text that when I saw the whole Kyrie Irving situation,
Yeah.
and where when he was coming back, he had all the Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah, a lot of them was outside.
All of
the
them was
bar place.
outside.
Yeah.
Like supporting him.
Yeah.
And I believe I had sent it to you on Instagram, and I was like, man, look at unity. Like, well, no matter what they believed in, all they know is that there was a brother that suffered at the hand of what he believed in. And he's getting ready to get back on the court. Let's go ahead and support them.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the unity that we need to have on the forefront when it comes to Christendom, going back to what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, if we're able to come together in unison to be able to push this gospel, we could do so much together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And one thing that my pastor taught me this, shout out to Apostle Gene. He taught me you're not going to have all the answers. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to be the best communicator. You're not going to be the best gospel singer, whatever the case may be. But if there's somebody that's more gifted and you could have them on your team to be able to advance the gospel, why not?
Yeah.
But if I'm threatened by your gift, I'm not going to use you.
That's true.
If I feel intimidated that you speak better than me, I'm not going to use you. Yeah. So I'd rather suffer and try to make it and try to impact people's lives. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to having the whole team win because we have a solid squad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's good.
That's a lot. Go ahead, RJ.
I forgot.
Oh, it's gonna come back.
It's gonna come
No,
back.
it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back. It came back, and that's why I think for some, let's say pastors' kids. Let me not just say pastors' kids. Let me also
church.
Anybody who is in a leading role in church, their children. I feel like that's a lot of the reasons why they have either a tough time or they're targeted because people are not really focusing on the mission or the goal. I feel like in reality, what should happen is if I know such and such is a pastor, their children, to me, this is going to sound very selfish, should be really covered. They should be really prayed for. They should be really supported.
I agree.
Because not only now is, because one thing about my dad, he was a pastor before he was a pastor. So there are certain things that we did or didn't do for the sake of him being a pastor or whatever it may be. There are certain things that we couldn't say because it's like, nah, don't do that. That's because good. You don't want the people at the church coming at your dad wrong. Right. And it's like, again, I didn't tell him to be a pastor. You get what I'm saying? Right. And I feel like there are certain things, there are certain people as a pastor's child or a minister's child or whatever it may be, you might suffer disrespect from certain people, but you got to think, nah, this is my father or my mother is at the top of this ministry.
Right.
I can't talk to sister such and such how I want to.
Yeah.
I know I could get them correct, but I can't because of the fact that.
Let me ask you this question.
To make my dad look like he's disrespectful.
Let me ask you this question. Where did you get that notion from, though?
Yeah, because that's a great mentality. Because
think about what you just said. What made you feel like that? What made you feel like, you know what, I have every right to cuss out sister Molly, but I'm not.
So Molly?
I'm not because of who my dad is.
No, it's crazy because somebody was cool. She was like a grandma. So use another name. No, but honestly, it's really to me, because my mom would say it a lot. Okay. My mom would say it a lot. She would always say there are certain things that she herself couldn't say, she herself shouldn't say. There are certain things that my brothers and sisters, we'd be like, fam, no, don't take that. You want us to talk to him? It's like, no, because if you do, then the whole ministry might come tumbling down. Because the enemy himself is looking for a reason or a way to bring the ministry down. Yeah. So if you give him a reason, give him an inch, he's going to take a whole mile. Yeah. You go out and say something to such and such, you disrespectful, your father's not raising you right, he's just up there for show, he's just up there for the church, he's not raising his kids right, and not everybody at the church is spreading rumors, everything comes tumbling down. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? But again, it's like those kids that are the kids of the leaders, I feel like they should be
covered.
I'm not going to say treated like the king's kids, but it's like, fam, they got to be, the enemy's going to attack them.
Yeah.
And that is so true, because I feel like sometimes, you know, even though I did say I wasn't really a fan of PKs, but on the other side of it, a lot of times your children, well, the way that a lot of people see it, it's like the PKs, the kids, it's like there are a evidence of whatever anointing that their parents have.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is sometimes people will be like, well, you want to prophesy about everybody else's kids, but your kid's out in the street and you don't even know.
My dad put us on
You
Front
know,
Street.
that's the first thing that they're going to say. Every time somebody, the pastor will prophesy or say something, they will, I guess, go back to whatever the lifestyle, that their children have. And I feel like, yes, I understand, that is your seed, that is the fruit of your of your womb. But at the same time, the PKs, they have their own individuality. They have their own calling. They have their, but sometimes it's
supposed to.
they're supposed to, because if you really, really think about it, this is why a lot of this is one of the main reasons why the PK, they feel like they have to be rebellious. Because even though I wasn't the PK kid, but because of the pressure that I had to live a certain lifestyle, or I had to teach Sunday school, or I had to put my hand in the plow, even though I did not receive that revelation from myself. God did not give me that revelation, but because of who I was connected to, it was immediately placed on me because of who I'm connected to. And sometimes we have to, whether you're in a leadership role or not, a lot of times this is why a lot of kids in the church, they don't want to be a part of their parents' ministry. I know kids that they're still in God, they're just not in their parents' ministry, because they know that in this other setting they could be just a church member. Yeah, I'm just a church member. I don't have this expectation placed on me. I don't have to show people that I can pray for this amount of time. I don't have to show people that I have all of these gifts. I can be myself. And I think a lot of times when we send our kids to church in the hopes that God will have them operate in the fivefold ministry, and sometimes they're not in the fivefold ministry. I'm sorry, because I'll see some people where will have their kids go sing, and their kids can't sing. Like, come on,
they try to force that responsibility on their kids, like it's an inheritance or something.
Wait, hold on. I just don't lose your fire now. Don't lose your fire. The reason why I wanted to interject here, her and we had a conversation. And I remember I made the statement. You probably remember it because you almost beat me up for the statement. She was like, I said, you know what? All my kids are gonna be in ministry. And then she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, all my kids are gonna be in ministry. And she was like,
which is not a bad thing to say or a bad thing to want.
But the perception that she helped me to understand, and she was like, well, what if they don't want to be in ministry? Right. And I was like, what do you mean, what if they don't want to be in ministry? Nah, they all going to be in ministry. But this goes back to the individuality that you guys were talking about. And she opened up my understanding, a lot concerning that, at the end of the day, it has to be their choice. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it has to be something that they want. At the end of the day, I don't want to be one of them pastors where I got my daughter or my son in ministry because I'm getting ready to die, and it's just the right thing to do that my kids take over the ministry.
Even better, it has to be something that God wants.
Exactly. And one more thing before we go to the next subject. Another thing that will be healthy in church is if we have dialogue such as this.
Yeah. Right.
Because there's so much misconception, misinterpretation of things. And if we could all just come together and have like small settings like this where we could just discuss, things that are not necessarily discussed in the church. So this is where I want to commend you to. Thank you for this platform where you guys come and talk about the stuff that are not popular. What'd you say?
I was like, you wrapping up the show.
No, I'm just trying to get it. No. I'm just trying to say thank you because look at, like, I'm learning myself. You know what I'm saying? Through RJ's perspective, like, I see the post that he posted on Facebook. I be like, man, bro, why?
You know why?
Yeah.
You know how long? Listen, bro. And it's not like when people say, yo, you running away from your calling. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm not running away from anything. if God tells me this is what I want you to do, what am I going to say? No.
Right.
I've seen what happens to the people who say no. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no.
Callings look different. How it manifests is different.
Yeah.
Just because even God will call you to be a speaker, and somebody perception will be like, well, if He calls you to be a speaker, then you need to be at this platform. You got to look like this.
Yeah.
Sometimes
And
a
that's
speaker.
another thing. It's like
Exactly.
I know I can speak. Not to cut you off, Joe. I know I can speak. I know I'm a friendly dude. I know I'm good with people. But if I'm doing this because I know that I can do it, I feel like I'm going to be doing it in vain. Ever since the first time I preached, I was probably, this is going to sound so cliche, I was probably 12 years old. All right? I was probably 12 years old. And this was when we first started the ministry, it was at the house. So I'm really just preaching to my brothers and sisters, my mom and my dad.
Right.
But since maybe around high school time, it's like, pastor. Because in high school, I'm like, I'm not trying to do the same thing y'all boys doing. Y'all boys having sex. Y'all boys wilding, bro. You feel me? So middle school, high school, college, and somebody came up to me like, yo, we are called to be pastors. And I'm like, that's probably what God told you,
Yeah.
but He ain't tell me that.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So I've been hearing it so much. And even though I've been hearing it a lot, I never accepted it because it's like whatever God is telling y'all, He has to tell me. Just because y'all see my dad as a pastor and I preach from time to time, don't think that means I'm going to be a pastor too. Because why y'all not saying that to my brother?
Right.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Even though that probably just proved that point. But it's like, why y'all not saying that to my brother? Or why y'all not saying to this person or that person? For me, the reason why I put the post is now it's like, I'm going to have fun with it. Because now I want God to tell me something.
Right.
Whether it's a yes or whether it's a nah, just keep rocking how you rocking. I like you right here.
Right.
Let me not, how do I put this?
The pool.
You probably don't have the patience for the sheep. You get what I'm saying?
I'm gonna build you there.
Oh, hold on, I gotta change the card, man. I gotta change the memory card. This one full.
My lady.
Understand what I was saying. God might think I don't have the patience for the sheep, but I got the patience to help the shepherd.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I like that.
It's like a lot of people,
That's
they think
good.
they have the patience for the sheep, but when it all comes to them, it's like, nah, you crumbling down now. The ministry is done because you think you can handle all these different personalities, all these different backgrounds.
You opening Pastor Bernard's eyes like,
That's true. That's
It's
true.
like, no, you're help the shepherd.
that's
Bruh,
good.
Bruh,
Knowing
listen.
your strength.
Not
That's
everyone
good.
that preaches is called to pastor.
That's right.
Like, just because you got a word don't mean that you got to go and open up a church and start this ministry and that, because there's different aspects of ministry that God is calling us to where we're going to be very effective at winning souls. Like, for example, I may not have the grace to do a podcast like this, but Sister Lynn and Brother Dro got the grace for it.
Yeah.
And this is attracting people, you know? But that's all I wanted to say.
That's all I was gonna say, man. That's all
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
You know,
If somebody try my kids as a pastor, I'm not taking it.
right.
That part.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not taking it.
because you know, I used to don't want to be in ministry for that reason. Because at a very young age, you know, my parents have 4 girls. I'm the only son. People always be like, "Oh, when are you gonna be a pastor to take over the church and stuff like that?" And at a very very young age, I used to be in like committees meeting with my dad, with board meeting. I don't know what they're talking about. He have me sitting right there with him.
Oh my
you know,
God.
and I don't. Sometimes they are talking. You know, Haitians. It's like they are yelling. They are like
They're arguing.
They're arguing. But it's just I don't want to be part of that setting at all. I just want to play.
Yeah.
I just want to be a kid. So that made me did not want to be in. Didn't want nothing to do about ministry. And people used to tell me, "Oh, that's the pastor's son." I'm like, "No, not me." You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to be part of things like that at all.
You know, one misconception is people think that ministry is the 4 walls. Or they think
that's
that
true.
ministry is when you grab the mic, it's the pulpit, you breaking down the words. But this is ministry. Like what we were saying before with the previous episode, RJ, like his videography business, that's ministry
That's
too.
right, that's right.
Because one conversation that you could have with somebody could open up their eyes. So ministry is not confined to just the 4 walls. Your whole life should be ministry.
And, you know, that goes back to a conversation that we had not too long ago. We said if you are doing things in the church, in your, you said you're Christian, you have God in you. You are demonstrating God's love and so forth. And people in your neighborhood, people around you, they don't experience that through you. You're not doing nothing. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Because it's not just the four walls. People feel like if I'm not doing something inside of the church, I'm not doing ministry.
And that's why I always say I know how anointed someone is based on what the people that are closest to you, what they have to say about you, or the people in your community, what do they have to say about you? Because guess what? You go into that church setting, people are automatically going to give you that reverence or that honor, or because you're literally, a lot of time people go and they're performing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you're only going to receive a feedback based on what you give the people. Right. So if you're performing and you're giving this person this version of yourself, their response is going towards whatever you gave them. Yeah. So when you're at home to the people in your community, the people that you interact with on a daily, basis, and they don't have anything good to say, or they don't have anything to say at all, that lets me know that you're not effective, because I always say, God, when he's doing whatever he's doing for you, it starts in the house of the people. I guess it starts in the house, or the people that's in the house with you. Moses, God placed him in the very same house of the people that he was going to go, against. It always starts at home, or it always starts with the people that are closest to you. So I always say, listen, I don't want to hear what people have to say, people have to say about you that sees you, Yeah. But I want to hear what those close to you, what do they have to say? Right. Like, what kind of person are you? Yes. I've seen, let me tell you, I'll give you one. I work in a customer service, field. Yeah. And I've had church members, because 9 out of 10 I'm in a drive-thru, so they can't see my face. Mm-hmm. But I can see them. And I'm telling you, these people be so nasty, but they don't know that I know them. I saw this lady that came, and she literally threatened someone that I know by saying that she was going to put voodoo on them. Wow. And then a week later, I saw that same lady in church with her arm literally stretched out, ready to touch heaven. Mercy. And she was passed out in praise. Mercy. And this is the same person.
Maybe she was asking for forgiveness.
Oh my God. That's the pastor in you, RJ.
You know what'd be so funny? Like, she'll call me, she'll be like, man, you ain't gonna believe who I saw. I said, who? Sister such and such and such. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, man, you ain't gonna believe what she did. I'm like, what? No.
So mean and I'm like, whoa. And then when and now encounter these same people, hi, my sister, how are you? How you doing? And I'm like, you're on this, okay, it's like camera. Action, and they're performing, and I give them the political answer, but in my mind, I'm like, that's why a lot of people are just like saying that church people are fake, or
That's what I was about to say.
They be right.
They be right. They do.
Like,
it's like,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, how do you act when you think that people aren't, or when people aren't looking? Because we're so worried about, okay, pastor's gonna see me, so-and-so, sister so-and-so, brother so-and-so is gonna see me, so let me, hi, how are you? But how do you act when other people aren't looking?
The same guy you see on Facebook with me is the same guy I'm everywhere.
Period.
And I make sure
and
that's what it is.
And I feel like that's one of the things that's gonna help a lot of people is when we be our authentic selves. Yes. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you saw me in the parking lot, I wasn't, hey, praise the Lord, God bless you, bro. Like, I was like, man, RJ, what's up, man?
The whole time I'm like, man, this man funny, bro. Because, like, I know, you feel me? Yeah. Although I haven't seen Bernard face to face in like a few years, I still know. I'm like, yo, last time I saw this man, he was a jokester, he was funny. When I be seeing him on videos with Stephanie, he's a jokester and he's funny. I'm about to come up, they told me he a pastor now. I'm like, I don't know. But once you approach me like that, I'm like, all right, cool, bet. We still rocking. We still rocking because that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, my pastor, once again, shout out to Apostle Gene. You know how much time Pedro said demonstration? Demonstration ministry, yes. 6331 West Commercial Boulevard. Right? It's like, there's nothing wrong with just being you, being yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, you're going to have some people that, you don't want them to get too familiar to the point where they just straight out disrespect you. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like, I have flaws too. Yeah. Like, I have impatience too. Like, if you say the wrong thing, I'm gonna come at you too. And then from there, man, you know what? I should never handle that situation like that. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I grew up in a generation of older men and women of God that if they did something, that was it. There was nobody questioning them. Touch down my anointed, do my prophets no harm. That doesn't mean that you can't come down and apologize for stepping on Sister Sue's toes. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, we have to just be authentic. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to just be ourselves according to how God has wired us. And that's why I'm so, like, grateful for you guys, because Lynn definitely going to be her. You know what I'm saying? Pedro's definitely going to be him. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, there's such a long time where I had this perception, like, I had to be like this. In order for me to be effective, I had to dress like this. I had to talk like this. But a lot of the this that I was doing, it wasn't in me. You know what I'm saying? So in trying to pursue this, I was losing my identity. And it wasn't until I started to learn and get to know God for myself. And God was like, hey, this is who I called you to be. This is a part of all you are. Now just go be that. Don't be like Bishop such and such. Don't be like Pastor such and such. I want you to be Bernard. Because that's how you're going to be effective. Your little jokes that you tell during your sermons, that's what's going to help you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, that's good. As you all can see, the conversation has been great. We're going to go ahead and cut it here. Make sure that you guys stay tuned for part 2 of this same episode.